Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show with your host, Phil Tarrant.
Good everyone, how you going? Thanks for joining us on the Smart Property Investment Show. Today we're going to move a little bit left of field, do something I don't think we've done before, but I'd like to do more of this sort of stuff. We're fortunate in the property investment space that there is a lot of driven, hungry, talented people who work within this space. A lot of them buyers agents, some of them are database people, a lot of really good mortgage brokers, accountants who are very happy and passionate about sharing their information, their stories, their guidance, their advice, to help people be more effective and be smarter property investors. A lot of these people obviously work in this space, and there's some sort of commercial component to what they do as advisors, and I think that's something we talk about a lot, about the need to pay for good advice, but that's not what today's all about. What there's about these people who work in this space are hungry to make more informed property investors, and a lot of them give their information away for free. And I've got one in the studio today who's come in and had a bit of a chat with us. You might have seen him or heard him on the podcast before, a guy called Paul Glossop from Pure Property Investment. He's the founder of that business. He's also a director there. He's a buyer's agent. So go back and tune into some other stuff. But Paul's he's brought a bag along with him today, and I've been pestering him for the last sort of month or so. Now he's been up to something in relation to launching a new book, and I've got it in my hot off the press in my hands right now, and I've got a stack of 5 of them that we're going to give away to our listeners to this podcast. But I persuaded Paul to come in and tell us a little bit about his book and why he's done it. Writing a book is a pretty big undertaking, so they don't come easy, but there's got to be a reason why. There's got to be some method to his madness for becoming a published author. This book, The Surfer's Guide to Property Investment by Paul Glossop, now available in all good bookstores and probably also on the discount shelves already. Paul, how you go? Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
You're too kind.
So this is literally straight from the printers.
Straight from the printers. Yeah. We were given by our publishing company about 1,000 books. So we had a courier knock on our office door about a week ago and saying, I've got a delivery. And I said, okay. And it was literally 5 different trolleys coming up the lift over about an hour and a half. So we've got literally a treasure trove of free books as part of the publishing deal that we struck. And yeah, I'm absolutely stoked. That's a story that I've taken about a bit over a year to write has actually been picked up. I did it as a bit of a shits and giggles, pardon the French, adventure for myself, more so just to pen my life a little bit, and then it turned into something else, and then literally turned into a publishing company in my office about a year ago, or probably about 6 months ago, saying, hey, we want to publish a book. And I said, you really? And you sure about that?
I didn't realise people were that desperate. but you're already using the words like stoked. Is this some sort of cool surfer parlance
easy
that you like to...
Yeah. No, look, life's too serious.
Tell me about it. Tell me, and you agree with me. I think we're fortunate to work within the industry. You actually work in the industry. I'm sort of a bit of an observer in the wings, but that there's a lot of passionate people who share their knowledge, and they generally, my view, there's 2 types of people that work in property. There's the people that really want to help people out. Then there's the people who just want to shaft them and stitch them up and try and get a quick win, right?
Yeah.
You're one of the former, and I think we're fortunate that there are some really good operators in this space who really care about supporting property investors to do it better. And your book is part of that story. But a surfer's guide to property investment. Tell me why.
Yeah, the why, and I get asked it, funnily enough, my wife didn't know I was writing this book for about 9 months, and I, in my spare time...
You keep secrets in your marriage, do you?
Well, it's not necessarily a secret if no one asks what you're doing, right? Ultimately, I was doing it on work hours, so I was doing work. But everyone's got adventures in their life. Everyone's got a story, and for nothing other than the fact that I've always enjoyed writing, and I've put a lot of content onto your website over the years and to a whole bunch of industry related magazines on property and different aspects around it as well. And I got to the point where I probably had a very, very big collection of short stories, but it was all very generic property stuff. And as much as I think it's extremely important, it was probably more so to say, well, how does that reflect on me and my journey and how I've invested in property and also shaped how I've built a career as well as financial freedom through property over well in excess of a decade. And for me, it was sort of started off by saying, well, I'd love to be able to pen what my life looked like and to not necessarily try and give the whole, give inspiration to other people, but it was something that I wanted to do as a bit of a legacy. I thought, well, I've done so much personally that I feel like I would love to share what I've done, and hopefully someone can take a little bit of little pieces of what I've done over my life and how I've learned different things from property, and then put it into a bit more of a concise aspect of saying, if you can put it into a book of, the best part of 255 pages, then I look at it now, and I've read it a few times since I've had it published, and I thought, it's actually not too bad if I'm not too biased myself to say.
Is it a fairy tale?
No, there's nothing in there. And
is it like live happily ever after? I guess that's what you're trying to do, right?
That's what the cover shows, is that it's me as a 36-year-old with a surfboard under my arm at my local break, just coming out of the water from
You're sure that's just not like
surf.
a stock shot that you've photoshopped in a green room?
It'd be a pretty good job. That's actually me at Wanda Beach, Cronulla.
Oh, is it?
Just before Christmas.
So there's a bit of swell running.
There was a nice little clean 3-foot day when we took those photos. But, that's truly, truth be told, that's my happy place. And I think what I've been able to do is figure out how to utilize property as the vehicle to give me the opportunity to find that happy place.
And that's what this is about, right? It's
exactly.
About, so property is a vehicle. It's utility. It's something that's going to get you somewhere, right?
Exactly.
And you're getting somewhere from, I was fortunate to receive a copy before it went to press, and I wrote the forward to it, which was thank you for giving me that opportunity. But irrespective of whether you're a surfer or not, you've just used that a bit of as a metaphor for saying, hey, you work hard, you do what you do. Property is a vehicle for you to get where you want to get, and at the moment, this vision is sunny days, offshore winds, perfect swell, have a surf, spend time with family, and that's why you do what you do. But irrespective of your surf or you're into knitting or whatever, you're just saying you got to find that one thing that can actually be a hook or a driver.
Yeah.
To give you a beacon or help steer you in a particular way, or at least set the standards or the filters for how you assess your life. But you're talking about, oh look, I wanted to show myself. You're not that old, right? Is this like version 1? It'll be something.
It's funny because I've been asked it a couple of times already, and we've sort of already got some conversations to potentially a surfer's guide to not necessarily eternal happiness, but potentially other things that happen along the way in life. And I use surfing as
it's going to be franchises.
Oh, potentially. Look, keep an eye out for the Instagram page. It's already up and running. But but it is exactly like you said, Phil. I think the whole
learn
point,
to surf, by the way. I've surfed with you.
Look, there's no noting in there of saying that I'm an exceptionally good surfer. I've been surfing for too long to be as average as I am. Yeah. But that being said, I think exactly right is that there's so many people out there who everyone has something that is their happy place. Now, whether it's literally in a corner reading a book, if it's out there surfing, if it's mountain biking, if it's spending time with your friends, if it's literally just downtime full stop, people have that. And for me, it's sort of saying, how can we then put a bit more of a concise guide together to say how to not necessarily just invest in property and make money, but we go through things of, potentially the details of why property and mastering the mindset, budgeting, strategy, learning how to, really do the groundwork properly all the way through building your dream team, right through to picking locations, renovations, exit strategies, the whole lot. So it's not just how to make money in property, it's kind of how to make property fit you personally, because everyone who'll pick up this book will be completely different to the next. And the whole intention is to say, find out who you are first, find out what drives you, find out what you need, and then from there, utilize some of the guidance in this book to actually get you to that place.
Do you reckon all that stuff matters?
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Like, I truly think that when I first started out, I'd say, no, it doesn't matter. You just buy a property and you might buy more and you might buy more, and hopefully you can hold them long enough that you'll make a bunch of money and you'll pay them down, and all of a sudden you've got a residual income. Ultimately, that's kind of where everyone sits and what the objective is. But if you don't have the why, I'm such a big believer now, the older I get, is that if I don't have a why, I lose inspiration. It's not just in property, if it's in business, if it's becoming a better surfer, it's becoming a better dad. If you don't really have a reason as to why, then I just feel like everyone gets to a point where you switch off the caring factor. And for me, that's why it's really important, is that not having the carrot or the dangling as to understanding why you're doing it, eventually you just become really stale.
And is this just your experience through life, or have you sort of, I know some people have had to go on to Harvard Business School to work out the why when it comes to business, right? Like what is the thing that can actually motivate you to do a particular thing? And different people are wired differently. Like I'm wired differently to you, you know, like I don't benchmark my direction against a particular rationale of I'm not a very philosophical person, or I'm not a religious person, or like I don't really have a guiding light, except that I try and do at any given time the right thing. And that's what I do, right? I know if I do that through life, I'll sort the rest of it out.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And that's my particular philosophy. Maybe I am quite philosophical, but yours is something a lot more tangible in that you're saying that, you've crystallized what I guess happiness looks like. I look at the cover of your book, you're generally pretty miserable, but you're sort of, this is like I think this is when you're happy, that sounds like you're in your zone when you're doing this sort of stuff and you're better at doing what you do in life because of it.
Yep.
So that's what works for you.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's, if people just learn that from that going, you got to find something to give you some direction. Otherwise you just don't end up anywhere. And I think any person who knows anything about sort of, and I'm not going to say you're a life coach, but life coaching or goal setting or whatever, it's something very, very tangible, and that's what you need.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the biggest thing from my side of things that is very, very evident in life, in Western life these days, is yes, happiness is however we choose to define it, but unfortunately money is going to play a definite role in happiness. And as much as we don't want to be a slave to cash per se, we live in a very, very privileged country that has a lot of beautiful and amazing things that come free to us, and because we have things like reciprocal healthcare and all the other aspects that come with living in Australia. But part of this is we need to try to strive towards a certain physical financial position that's going to allow us to actually get to a point. So for me, it's to say, well, find what makes you happy and then figure out what that number looks like, and then utilizing property as the vehicle to get you to that point as safely, as strategically, and as quickly as you possibly can without necessarily sacrificing what happens in between that. Because for me, my journey's sure as hell not done. I'm 36. I plan to do what I do until more or less I can't get into a car or onto an airplane to actually get involved in what I'm doing for a living anymore. But ultimately, money isn't really necessarily the huge reason why I do it anymore. And I love that.
So if you don't, we talk a lot about on the show about the need of goal setting. You need to understand where you're going. If you don't understand where you're going, you'll never get there, all this sort of stuff, right? If you don't have a reason why you're doing something, can you not be a good property investor?
It's a good question.
It's a bit of a double something or other. But
I know plenty of people who have made plenty of great decisions in property and haven't really, you ask them why you've done it. It's like, because I had the opportunity and I should be doing something, is usually a lot of the reasons, or that's the biggest.
So you're saying
rationale.
that's soulless. There's no happiness in that.
I think that personally, you're not necessarily working towards something better or bigger than what you actually can achieve personally. And I really do believe that by having a clear set end goal, and then building a team, and then understanding where you want to get to over the long term. And you might not have it to start with, you might not know it, because most 25, 30, 35-year-olds I know don't necessarily know where they want to get to. They kind of know what they need to live their life the way they're living their life at that point in time, and that's a good starting point. You might not know what makes you happy until you're 45, 55, and that might change as you get older, but knowing what you spend and what you need right now is key. And that's, if nothing else, if you don't have that, then you don't really know why you're trying to do things. And I'll give you an example. Right this morning, I was in my office speaking to a client who we bought an investment about 2.5 years ago. They live in Melbourne. They've got an investment in Melbourne. We've got an investment up in Brisbane. We're looking at a third investment. One of their investments had performed extremely well. The other one's kind of about maybe 3 or 4% above where we secured it about probably about 11 or 12 months ago. For them, that was not necessarily a result, and they were getting a little bit anxious on it and thinking that maybe I should sell it in time where they'd literally only a year in. But ultimately, it comes down to why are they actually buying this property and what their goal was, and me revisiting that with them and just clearly going back through what their objective is. And they're only 3 or 4 years into it.
So you actually do this as part of your...
This is part of what we do. And it's not something that... It's for us that it's an ongoing service fee or anything to that effect. It's really intentionally say we need people to steer the course. And if you're not going to stay the course yourself personally, if you don't have a reason why you're doing this and it's a 20 or 30 year objective, you end up getting in that position where quickly you'll all of a sudden find a crossroads and you say, well, the property might be cash flow negative by $2,000 a year and it hasn't gone up to the level that I thought it was going to go. So my decision now is exit. And really it's the why. Why are you doing this in the first place?
So let me just drill down on that a little bit. So what I'm taking away from that is that if you don't invest for a reason, i.e. you understand why you're investing, you can't make informed investment decisions, because you then can't look at a particular opportunity or understand how an asset might work, a particular property, or you don't know what to do with it unless you actually know where it fits within your investment journey. If it's your first property, it might be, I'm doing this because it gets me on the ladder and I just want to start accumulating property. Or it might be more of a, we're buying this particular property because our goal is to start paying down our debt, or we need to start moving into our retirement phase in 5 years' time, and therefore we need high-yielding properties to pay down debt. So unless you really know where you're going, you can't find the assets to be part of that story to get you there. Is that it?
Yeah, look, I think you pretty much nailed it, Phil. And if we there's literally a chapter in the book, A Surfer's Guide to Property Investing, that I wrote that it's mastering.
Stop plugging it. That's about the 10th time you said it.
I'll see how many more I can. It's going to be my
it's like
show.
a little bing.
Yeah, maybe we'll add that in throughout the whole podcast. But there's a chapter that I put in there of mastering the investor mindset, and I think mastery, as anyone who's sort of studied that whole concept of mastery, is the minimum 10,000 hours of doing a particular subject. But you won't master it straight away. But being conscious of the fact that you need to figure out what your mindset is, and then building the team to allow you to hold yourself true to finding that mindset, they're all the key things personally that I think are so important. And if I had my time again, I reckon you'd be the same. If you had your time again and you started it all off, you'd probably say, look, yeah, I took action, and that was probably the best thing you could possibly do. And I think that's super important. But at the same time, there's nothing stopping you from taking action and building your mindset to keep understanding your why, because your why will keep motivating you, and it'll probably put some pauses on you at certain times when you might need to pivot or do something differently. And everyone will have regrets in their portfolio if you've done it long enough, and you'll have times where you say, if I did more of that, I wish I did more of that when I could have. And if I had that certain part of my mindset, understanding why I was doing it, I probably would have been more aggressive or less aggressive at a certain point in time as well.
So when is the first inaugural Surfer's Guide to Property Investing trip to the Mentawis?
Oh, this is
on a boat. There you go.
Well, there you go.
How good is an idea?
Well, we're actually considering maybe thinking about running a very, very intimate group of trying to get maybe 10 maximum budding surfers who are thinking about property investing, as well as all the other aspects about mindset, and maybe doing a bit of an overseas junket as it will be. So that is actually something that you've picked my brain on, and unscripted, we might be there. So keep an eye out, because dates to come.
Is that what it is it?
Watch this space, dates to come.
So going back to the Surfer's Guide, this could actually be the ex-person's guide to property investing.
Exactly.
It's and you've used this metaphor of, and which I don't mind, by the way, because I don't surf very often, and when I do, I really enjoy it, but I don't really get much of a chance. I'm not very good. But a lot of the metaphors that you've used,
that was very generous, not very good.
Not very good. Absolutely miserable.
Average,
it depends.
Average, at the worst kind of average.
Very average.
Yes.
Very average. Extremely average. I sort of get it, right? Like, and when I read through the original draft that you gave me, I went, oh, look, I sort of understood what you were getting at, and putting aside the why and that. But when you look at surfing, the hardest thing about surfing is personally your fitness, right? If you're fit, it's the worst sport in the world, right? If you want to call it, I guess it's a sport. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's in the Olympics.
It's in the Olympics.
Yeah.
So it's the worst sport in the world. If you're not fit, it's horrible, particularly if it's big.
Extremely frustrating.
Extremely frustrating. So you can't even play the game if you're not fit. Unless you can paddle out, get out there and recover quickly enough to actually catch a wave, you're out of the game. So it doesn't matter, right? So absolute fitness. And you put that in the paradigm of property investment, it's about market understanding and knowledge and stuff. Unless you are completely understand where you need to be and where you need to be at a particular point, you can't do it, right? But then you talk about conditions, it's easier to surf in better conditions. It's harder to surf in tougher conditions. The 2 or 3 seconds that 10 seconds you may get on the wave, 20 seconds if it's a really good, point break, is a very, very small component of it. That's the win, but it's all the hard work that goes into getting yourself into position to capitalize on catching a good wave, right? And that's the metaphor you talk about.
I love it. The metaphors are there's so many of them.
There's so many.
I look at it, and you and I as budding average surfers can kind of relate to it. But I think anyone who's sort of understands the concept of whatever you might find as your happy place, everyone's got something that they know is either a sport or a hobby or a pastime where you can be very average at it, but you still enjoy it. But ultimately, the better you get at it, the more of it you can do, or the better at it you can do.
But the better you get at surfing, for example, the harder it gets, and the more you get frustrated about how crap you are, right?
Well, you
reflect. That's the thing, right? The more you know about anything, the more you invest into it.
Yeah.
Emotionally, the worse you feel you go at it. And I see a lot of that in property investors as well, right? Where
completely.
They just go, I don't want to do it anymore, or I can't break to that next level, you know, and there's a lot of mediocre surfers around there, right? Because
absolutely.
Unless you practice and hone your craft every single day, and that's another thing about this metaphor, unless you are in the game practicing daily, can you be exceptional at surfing? We're putting a perspective of property investment. I don't do that as a property investor, but I'm fortunate I can pay for those resources. I use a buyer's agent, and that's, I get the benefits of all that stuff, that mastery of the craft. And you spoke about 10,000 hours to be a mastery at something, right? You work 1,950 days a week as a full-time person, right? So that means you need to do it for 5 years before you're an expert at something.
Exactly.
Right? It's hard to get.
It's absolutely hard to get.
hard
And
to
that's
get.
full time.
That's full time.
You think, how many people actually do that full time in one specific vocation to then be able to lend their guys on how to actually then give someone else the opportunity to be able to learn what they've learned and do what they've done.
What's your favourite chapter?
Mate, I personally...
I read this first bit and I thought, your backstory is pretty boring.
Yeah,
personally.
right.
I'm not going to say anything about it, but I was yawning after about the first page or so. I went, what's this guy?
Look, as an avid Westie who took a 2-hour, 10-minute...
Yeah, Westies. What's that for people that don't live in Sydney?
Or anywhere that's probably more than 45 kilometres from a coastline anywhere in the country.
Okay.
Yeah, it could be Westie, it could be a Southie, it could be an Eastie. It could be Bogan. I classify myself as an upper middle class Bogan, regardless of when and where I'll end up in life. But I look at it to say, look, I started life as a 2-hour, 10-minute train ride to the beach, back from the beach. And they were the best days of my life when I was 14, 15 years old, learning my craft, surfing, and just generally being happy and not worrying too much about life. And the irony is in life is that as you grow up, what your aspiration is to figure out is how to become financially independent or free enough to try and revisit those days that were the happiest days of your life. And they might include kids and family and the rest of it when you do try to want to revisit it. But the chapter that I look at that kind of gives me the ability to say, how do I get there, is at the end, sort of looking at the secret to building long-term wealth. The keys in the chapter name. And the biggest thing I've learned over my time investing in property is there's no short wins. There's nothing in that book that's going to tell you how to go and flip a property and make 150 grand and be a genius. It really is going to talk to you about the different strategies that can be applied. But ultimately, it's the secret to building long-term wealth and not trying to worry too much about the destination, but what the 10, 15, 20, 30 years is going to encompass along the way, and not to sound and rehash the journey name or word too much. But that's the part for me, is that everyone's going to end up at some stage older and uglier than what they are right now. And really it's to say, how do you ensure that those memories and those days are the best days of your life while still making sure the end goal is going to be something you really are aspiring to in the end. So that long-term wealth is key.
Yeah. What do the reviewers say? New York Times bestseller yet?
Look, it's a week in, Phil.
Yeah.
Geez,
you haven't had any sort of critical responses yet, or
not yet? But I'm sure I'm waiting for them. I'm surprised. Well, look, you wrote the foreword, and as a very distinguished editor out there at large, look, you've written a very gleaming review.
The fact that you asked me told me that you're just scraping the bottom of the barrel straight away, going, you probably started with someone important and just went, everyone said no, and you end up with me.
Truth be told, I asked one person and it started and stopped there. And I thought, well, if he says no, then I'm really, really going to be in bad shape. But
are you doing like a big promo thing with this?
Yeah, we are.
What's going to happen?
We're going to do a whole bunch this year because, as I said at the start, I've got a whole bunch of free copies in my office that we're looking to get the word out and hopefully give as many books away as we possibly can. So if people want to jump over to our website, purepropertyinvestment.com, they can actually get our book free plus shipping. So we'll cover the shipping. We'll cover the book. They just pay for the shipping, and I think it's going to be around about $9 to post. Yeah, big dollars.
Wow.
But to post the book out across the country, and we'll also cover. I think you're looking at potentially throwing a free book out to a lot of your.
Can you give me 5 books?
I can give you 5.
All right, what
Johnny 5.
I've been thinking about how we can do this, and I'm not paying for the postage you can pay for.
$29.95. You're just paying for the book.
I'm paying for the book.
$29.95. I'll pay for the postage.
Are you going to sign each one? It's going to be
absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. I'll personalise every one of them.
Let's do this a bit different. Let's the title here. I was just looking at this, Paul. It says A Surfer's Guide to Property Investing, and then the tagline or little blurb thing is it says how to achieve your financial goals and lead your best life through investing in property. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually do this as a social media thing. So you're all aware of the Smart Property Investment social media handle, Smart Property HQ on Facebook, which is a Facebook thing. If you what I want you to do, if you want a copy of Paul's book, put a picture up, post a picture of you leading your best life through investing in property, and just put a mention. So mention at Smart Property HQ in anything you post. You can also put in Pure Property Investment. What's your at Pure Property Investment?
At Pure Property. So pure _property.
Pure underscore. So do both. Mention both. So that's Smart Property HQ and
Pure _property.
So put your picture up there of you doing something. It could be the bookworm's guide to property investing.
It could be you just hanging out with your kids. It could be you literally in a pool. It could be you in your car doing burnouts in.
So essentially,
the
your why.
It's your why.
It's your why.
I don't condone burnouts, by the way.
No, it's horrible. Whatever makes you happy and how property investing is helping you get there.
Absolutely,
that's the picture we want to see. So, whatever the best pictures are, me and Paul will go through it all and we'll determine who the winners are. So 5 books.
5 books.
So when you hear this podcast, it'll be 1 week subsequent to that. So let's post stuff straight away. Make sure you stick us in there, and the 5 winning people will send you a direct message, and we'll get a book over to you. That's a cool thing.
Yeah, I think so.
So I think this is important because a lot of people, you talk about financial freedom, and for a lot of people, financial freedom means a lot of different things. Some
Absolutely.
people, financial freedom. I know a guy we both know whose idea of financial freedom now is living up in the hinterland of Byron Bay, and he's been chasing that for 15, 20 years,
and he's there.
Right? And he's there now, and he's pretty happy. And he's definitely got his why in life and why he's trying to do it. But he's at the hustle hard to get there. He's done it his own particular way, and he's very talented at what he does. And if you listen to this, who you are, Greg. That's his why. He's chased that for ages, and I've known him for quite some time, a lot longer than you. But he's always had that thing, right? This sort of guiding light, this thing he's aspiring to, and he's got there right now. But his vehicle to get there was not property investing or something else. But I think when I speak to, and I'm very fortunate that I get to speak to property investors from right across Australia, and they share their stories. And a lot of people work. Most people are PAYG employees who invest in properties. Yes, people work as SMEs and business owners and stuff. But it actually empowers them to make a difference in their lives. And property is a vehicle that can allow you to do that. You can be a business person as a property investor. Absolutely. And that's what appeals to most people, I think, is that means, yes, you earn an income, you derive an income from working, your time, you swap your time for money, and then that money, as a property investor, you're running your own business. You get to make the calls, you make the shots, you make the mistakes, you deal with the challenges, but you actually get to dictate what your future looks like. And going back to what we've been saying, unless you know why you're doing it, you're out of the game already. But once you've sorted that out, you know what, you can deviate and make some mistakes along the way as long as you get there eventually. So, this is the why, this is what we want. So remember, Smart Property HQ, tag us, pure_property. Yep. And put your picture in there of why you do what you do. All right, this is good, Paul.
Yeah, the other thing, the exciting thing is that the timing of us running this podcast is we're live now and out in all good bookstores. So
the bookstores still exist?
Well,
I'm giving you a hard time. I buy a lot of books.
I've seen your library. It's full of many leather-bound books.
It is.
It smells of rich mahogany.
One of my diversified asset classes is that I actually have a lot of old, expensive books.
I've seen your World War I and World War II relics that sit out there.
Even go back further than that. I've got a lot of good Churchill stuff these days, and
personalised. It dials up to a next pay bracket that you're not quite into.
Signed Churchillian stuff is it's on the expensive side.
Gotcha.
But I do have some very good signed books, as you know. So, but anyway, so I'm a big advocate of books, and I will read this again rather than looking as a PDF.
No, good. But it's So Dymocks, WH Smith, Newslink, all the big retailers, and ultimately it's on iTunes. It's out there on Amazon. So if anyone wants to go and search A Surfer's Guide to Property Investing, it's out there. Ding.
Should we do a spot the typo competition? What do you reckon about that?
I've had a couple of people already try to hold me up on it. No one yet has held me up. But look,
really?
Ultimately,
you've got to find one, right? And don't worry, I'll look.
Good. I'm glad. I know you will, and I do it to you on your website very regularly as well. But I must say that your editors are exceptional, so I don't really find any of these days. But look, it's been awesome to write it, and I think truly, if anyone gets anything out of it, I think there's going to be a lot in there on investor mindset, and ultimately, there's a lot of detail, a lot of data. There's a lot more stuff there for people who want to get really down to the nitty gritty. But if you're looking to just generally get a bit more of a handle on why you're doing and what you can do in property investing to get a better outcome, the book's going to be for you.
And I think all investors need a bit of alignment every now and then. I'm lucky that I get to check in with property investors quite regularly because I do this podcast, right? It forces me to do it. But a lot of people they need to check in and reassess or understand why they're doing it and just realign. I think that's good. And that's why I read. Yeah. I read a lot, right? Yeah. I read a lot of this sort of stuff, but also read stuff that's nothing to do with property. But thanks for coming in and sharing that. We haven't given anything away so people can actually read it. It was good. It's good balance, and there's good balance between your story and where you got to where you are. But then there's a lot of meaty stuff in here as well, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's good. So you surfing much these days?
Mate, as much as I was about
Where's
to say,
your offices? Where are you based?
We're based in Cronulla, and I live in Cronulla.
There's no reason why you can't surf every.
Well, look, I'm fortunate
every
enough.
lunchtime.
Yeah, look, and absolutely. I'm probably fortunate enough to get in the water a couple of times a week, and probably my happy place these days is surfing with my boy, who's only 5, but tearing it up probably 10 times better than I was at 15. So times are good, and it's again similar to the people who find their own happy place. I've found it in what I do and why I do it, and I try to make sure I've got as much time in the water with friends and family as I can.
So you could have people now when you're sitting in the lineup going, "Oh, you're that bloke, I've got this property. What do you reckon?" Are you that guy now?
I'll make sure I've got my earplugs in and zone out a little bit, and that's my time to make sure.
That's your time to do it. It's your time to shine.
Not exactly.
No. Are you doing any sort of? You're going to do some interviews on this sort of thing?
Or, we've got plenty of stuff happening. So we've got TV, radio, all kinds of other media. So
television celebrity.
Unfortunately or fortunately, that's going to be in everyone's faces. They've got a fair few people who are fairly interested in it, which is awesome. It's been exciting.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, thanks, mate. A Surfer's Guide to Property Investing: How to Achieve Your Financial Goals and Lead Your Best Life Through Investing in Property. Gee, book reviews have changed a lot, haven't they?
Yeah. Back in the day.
Back in the day, it would have been you had to read the whole thing and write something now it's just
talk about it.
Well, I've done a lot of this, but in other spaces as well. It's so much easier to do a book review like this.
Absolutely. And I think people actually get something out of it as opposed to
so.
Yeah. But the
just
irony
some flim flam trying to flog a book, right?
Well, it's true.
Down at all good bookstores.
The irony is we're flogging a book via a podcast.
Yeah.
The irony is not lost with me.
The irony is not lost, but remember to go and check it out. At Smart Property HQ, mention and pure_property. A pick of you living your best life through property investment, whatever that looks for you and whatever your why is. And Paul will be happy, free of charge, to ship off his book to you, a signed copy, and that'll happen over the next few weeks. And let us know, And anyone that reads this thing and happy to write in and let me know what they think, good and or bad. Look, editor at smartpropertyinvestment.com.au, only good. And if you're in the business of producing stuff, come and have a chat with us as well. I quite like doing this sort of things. Remember, smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. If you're not yet subscribing to our daily newsletter, so you're the first to know what's happening in property and property investment and surfing right across Australia, maybe we can transition to surf reports for surfers. Maybe it's a bridge too far. But anyway, you can dial in every morning.
I've got an article in Tracks magazine next week.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
God. How much you pay for that?
Look, they wanted me.
Did they?
Of course they did.
Have they got a photo of you like...
We've got lots of photos of me.
Don't actually got some photos of you?
Yeah.
I hope it's at... where's a good breakdown your way?
Oh, you've got Suck Rock, Voodoo, Cronulla Point.
I fly over that every time I come in on the plane.
Of course you listen to you. I look out there fly over that. I look down at people the way you like it.
It's not good very often, is it? Not good very often.
You wouldn't know sitting in your ivory tower.
It's a long way to Cronulla from where I live. But anyway, but thanks for tuning, everyone. If you like what we're doing with these podcasts, we like to mix them up. So if you've got a story to tell, it could be around your why and why you're doing what you're doing. You don't need to have a book. We prefer to talk to the real people, the normal people who aren't published authors. We share raw stories here. Just contact the team, editor at smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. And remember to click the button wherever you listen to this on the subscribe if you like what we're doing with these podcasts, and you can make sure you get every new episode as they come down the line. We'll be back again next time. Paul, say goodbye.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, guys.
No worries. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property, or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.